Okay, we are back for another modern day debate Discord stage debate. This time we're talking about should abortion be illegal? We have Shellshock taking the affirmative and PumkinSwift coming back for a negative. And without any further ado, we're just going to jump right into it. You two,
All right.
have fun.
All right. So for my quick opening statement, it's just like stating what my position is. I am the negative. I don't think abortion should be illegal. I think it should be legal with few to no restrictions for I would say for the first two trimesters, I think it should just be fine. Just like any other medical procedure. The third trimester, things do get dicier. That's like a topic that we'd have to get far more into the weeds about. Exactly like what I think they it should have very few restrictions there too, but that's for very specific reasons that are I feel like we should talk about the first two trimesters first because that's less in the weeds and then move to that because I feel like people could more reasonably disagree with me there. So that's how I feel about the issue.
And Shellshock.
Um, for me, it's quite simple. Abortion kills a human being. Killing human beings is wrong. Abortion bad. The end.
All right, uh, so I assume by that you mean that you think it should never be legal at any point, right?
With the exception of the mother's life, yes.
Okay, and that makes sense. I could see how that would fit inside your worldview. So I guess my argument would be the argument from bodily autonomy. That's normally what I go to. Generally speaking, we don't, and I don't think we should, require people to use their bodies to save another person's life. That's not something they generally have to do. For example, I am an organ donor, but that's something I had to opt into being. And that's something that they do with my body after I die, for instance. Also, like when we do blood drives, we don't just say, all right, everyone, come give blood. The government is going to force you to do this. We ask people to donate blood. And the reason we do that, instead of requiring people to do those things, to donate blood or to donate their organs, is because people have bodily autonomy. Even though those things are necessary for saving people's lives, we don't force them to do it. We ask them to do it. And I think if you're going to say that uh, we can't like force people to give organs or force people to give blood to save someone's life. I also don't think that you can say we can force somebody to not have an abortion to save somebody's life. I think that those are pretty analogous situations. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I disagree.
Can you say why? Do you think that in
Well,
what way do you think these are different situations?
there are two things. But first, you said that your opinion comes from body autonomy.
Yes.
So you do support abortions not only all the way up until 9 months, but including partial birth abortions.
Uh, this definitely gets more into the weeds about it. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by partial birth abortions. I might have to do some more reading on that. The reason,
When the baby is halfway through the birth canal, right, and a woman says, "I changed my mind, kill this thing," then that should be legal.
I'm not sure about that. I'd have to like the so the reason why I have some hesitancy in the late term is because I think people have a right to not be pregnant, essentially, and that's where the argument of bodily autonomy comes from. And so, if there are ways that you can not be pregnant without aborting a fetus, there become some question marks, right? The reason why I'm okay with and again, I think we should focus on the earlier stuff because it's more into the weeds. The reason why I think we should maybe let it be illegal, legal anyway, is because there can be some times where like we might need to carve out some exceptions, like for like you said, for the health of the mother. But if like we ban it outside of the health of the mother, we get some question marks like we don't know if the mother could have survived. We don't know if we're going to get prosecuted. It kind of has a chilling effect on whether or not doctors want to do abortions. That's a way more like specific thing. And so like that comes up to like the medical realities on the ground and like uh what laws we think are going to reduce the most harm in that case. And that's like a very complicated thing that kind of gets away from the moral argument, I think, right? So I think first we want to at least have some amount of agreement on the moral arguments, and then we can get more into like the realities of like how do we apply this moral system to the real world where there's like a lot of very complex things and complex medical realities that make it hard to have exactly what we want happen actually happen. Do you
I don't
understand what I mean when I say
disagree.
that?
Sorry.
I said I was just asking. Do you understand what I'm trying to get at there?
I do get it. Legality and morality are two separate things,
Mhm.
and I understand that, which is why I asked the question: do you support abortion all the way up until 9 months if your reasoning is body autonomy?
Well, again, I clarified. I think you have the right to not be pregnant. I don't think you have the right necessarily to an abortion. An abortion is just the way that you become not pregnant in a lot of situations. And the way that practically pans out gets a bit more complicated, right? But like the question we need to answer is whether or not an abortion in is at least in some cases it's okay to kill a baby in order to give people bodily autonomy. And I think we should focus on the earlier trimester stuff because that's where the moral arguments are rather than the
I'm,
practical ones.
I'm not denying that. I'm not denying. I'm also not denying that majority of abortions happen in the first trimester.
Hmm.
But I'm trying to understand your morality. If
Hmm.
you if you say that a woman can't get an abortion in the third trimester, you are restricting her autonomy to some degree by telling her what she can and cannot do.
Well, that's the thing is I I I don't think that I'm well, do you understand what I mean when I say you have a right to not be pregnant, right? Like you
I
have a
do.
right. Okay, so whatever medical procedure is the best idea to make you not pregnant at some point. In many cases, it's an abortion. In some cases, it can be things like a C-section, right? Whatever
Right.
that is, people should have access to it. It gets muddy what that is when you get into later trimesters and stuff like that, which is why I think that like we have to agree on the basic idea before we can talk about that. I don't think I'm being inconsistent with my worldview here. I think I'm acknowledging the fact that there are some times where there are better options than an abortion. There are some times where even if there might be a better option, we may not be able to legislate that into law. Like there are a lot of complexities and more moral factors besides just a woman's bodily autonomy at play here. And the late trimester abortions are the place where those other factors come up the most, which is why I want to focus on easier things that are more clear cut because I don't think I'm like sacrificing my values here. I think I'm just acknowledging a situation that's slightly different where there are more factors at play.
I'm not denying that, Pumpkin, but like for example, if I think that unborn babies are children, right,
Hmm.
that are worthy of protection, and you ask me a question like, oh, so does an unborn child deserve a citizenship? And I say no, that kind of reflects on my moral values, that I'm not really consistent with my moral values. If it's a human being, if it's an American citizen, if it does all if it does all the it has all the moral values as a born child, then it should have an American citizenship, stuff like that. If you the fact that you're telling me that a woman shouldn't get an abortion or can't get an abortion, and but she can still terminate her pregnancy via early birth, stuff like that, then to me that is uh, putting a restriction on her autonomy. And if that's the case, then body autonomy is not the reason you don't support an abortion.
Well,
So
okay.
I'm trying to understand your argument. If you don't support abortion for any reason all the way up until 9 months, then body autonomy is not the reason you support an abortion.
Well, no. Okay. So I don't think that the argument falls because the situation with like that you provide for yourself uh, that reflects on your values. I think that there's no outstanding circumstances that get in the way of that. What I'm telling you is that like it, if we have like a moral conundrum, right? And I say that this is bad for this reason. Like I can come up quickly with a like a thought experiment to show this idea if I need to, but I don't think I need to. But like if we have a situation where I think something is or isn't moral because of X reason, but then we change that like thought experiment or change the situation. I don't think it's inconsistent or necessarily reveals a lack of like a hypocrisy on my end to say that the answer should maybe change. And just to be clear, I am generally pretty okay with abortions into the third trimester most of the time because again I do think there is a bit of a chilling effect with like if you try to make them illegal, that means that, for example, women who need them because they're in one of the exceptions, like the life of the mother is at risk, that can make it difficult for them to get an abortion when they need it. I think that we should maybe still try to minimize the number of abortions that happen, but I don't think that we should necessarily outlaw it even in the third trimester.
Okay. Pumpkin, there is a fundamental difference in regards to body autonomy law when it comes to helping somebody using your body. For example, me saying that, hey, a person has died and he's a donor, he's an organ donor, right? A person has died, he's an organ donor, and I tell a doctor, hey, give me this man's heart, I'm going to die. There's a fundamental difference in that statement and me and a guy who's dying saying, hey man, I need your blood, can you give it to me? And I say no. One is demanding medical intervention and one is rejecting medical intervention.
But
Your body autonomy laws allow you to reject medical intervention, it doesn't allow you to demand medical intervention.
I'm not sure exactly what you're trying to get at here, but I feel like you might have misused your analogies there. But basically, I don't think, I guess I would just kind of disagree that there's a significant difference between someone saying, like, ultimately what we're talking about here is the state using force to force people to do things. In one case, they're forcing people to not get an abortion. In another case, they are forcing people to donate their organs or give blood or something, right? I don't think that the math changes all that much, just because in one case you are actively seeking medical intervention because you, for whatever reason, versus in one case you are simply not seeking medical intervention. I don't think that actually changes the morality of the situation. I don't think it should change the
I
legality
can
either.
explain to you using my analogy. The state is forcing me to not accept a heart transplant.
I'm sorry, I'm not following what you're saying.
Okay.
But wait,
I'm
sorry, in
trying to
what case?
explain to you that body autonomy laws allow you to reject medical intervention. They don't allow you to demand medical intervention. An abortion is demanding a medical procedure be performed on you. But denying to provide blood for somebody is rejecting a medical intervention. For
I
if you're saying that the state can say can it's the same thing, and then the state shouldn't be allowed to decide, then I can demand a heart transplant from somebody, and the state cannot intervene, which is ridiculous.
Well, no, that's not analogous at all. So,
Please,
okay, so if what you're saying, what I think you're saying here is that my bodily autonomy, if I say I need a heart transplant, that like if we follow through on my logic, we somehow get to a place where the state actually can force people to like give up their heart or whatever. That seems like an entirely like that seems like completely disconnected to what I'm talking about. Because in that case, what is happening is a state is using force to invade someone's bodily autonomy in order to help somebody else, which is essentially what I think is happening when you prevent people from getting an abortion. Like I care about the autonomy of every person to do what they want with their body. And I don't think that you should ever be forced in some way or another to use your body to sustain another person's life. And that is essentially the exact same like scenario, whether you are asking somebody to force to donate something versus versus like I don't know why I the word escaped me, versus an abortion. So what I need you to do, explain to me like with a
your
moral
voice is
example.
cutting.
Oh, I'm sorry. What I guess I need from you, if enough of the stuff I said actually went through, what I'll need from you is an example of the difference between, like a practical example of the difference between rejecting medical intervention versus demanding medical intervention, because I don't see how that's relevant currently.
Okay. I reject medical intervention by refusing to donate blood to somebody. You can understand this argument, right?
Yeah, you're simply just not doing anything, right?
Okay. If a trans disabled person asks a doctor, please remove my arm so I can identify with my identity, and the doctor says, no, go screw yourself, I'm not doing something like that, he's not violating that person's body autonomy.
Well, I think the reason that we don't do that isn't because like that's not a bodily autonomy issue. That's just a issue of like what is it? That's an issue of like best practices, right? Because like basically whenever we have any sort of surgery that has grievous like implications on somebody's body, we have to like analyze like the degree to which it's like medically necessary or something, right? Uh,
But it's his body, right? He's allowed to do what he wants with his body.
mhm, yeah.
So the doctor is violating his body autonomy by not refusing to cut off his arm.
Well, no, not well. I depends on what you're talking about. So I think like in a totally like abstract hyperspace, I think if somebody wanted to cut off their arm for whatever reason and they went through a psych evaluation to make sure they're like, hey, you're not like there's not like some weird psychological problem that's making you want to do this, right? Because this is what we would normally do, right? To make sure that this is something that would actually help your life and you're not making like because it's such a big decision for somebody's body. Uh, or for somebody's life to do something like that. But if like they could through all of that, I think they actually should have the right to like cut off their arm. I don't think you have the right to force one specific doctor to do it. But I think you should have the right to modify your body like that, given that we pass through all of the like the requisite psychological probing to make sure that you're not fucking up your body, and that's something that we do mostly for harm reduction purposes.
Okay. What you just said, you can't force a doctor to cut off this person's arm. In
Yeah,
that
you can't
sense,
force a
can
specific
you not
doctor, but
force?
we can say that like I mean this is sort of how it works at the ER right now, right? Like I can't force a specific doctor to operate on me. I can't go up to them and say, hey, you need me to do this. But we have a system such that no matter what, if you need emergency services, you will get emergency services. The state is essentially like making that happen, right? And so we can make it so that you will get certain certain medical procedures, not that a specific person is forced to give that specific medical procedure to you. That's a distinction.
Right, but we could say that doctors can now be choose to not give that medical procedure, right? They're not being forced anymore. But
Uh,
you think they
well, no,
should?
this is just how all of our medical procedures work, right? Like, I can't think of any medical procedure
A
where you're
doctor
out.
has to save the life of their patient. It's not a choice.
Yeah, but oh wait, okay, so there are like specific circumstances where a doctor is like forced to do surgery, whatever, like if they're on staff at a hospital. But that's different from going up to like a specific doctor that's like I don't know, does plastic surgery and saying like, hey, I need like this procedure, right? Like if there were like, for example, certain plastic surgeries that were covered by U.S. insurance or whatever, in like or some sort of system and we like guarantee that people would get them that still wouldn't give you the like it's the same thing as like how we do lawyer stuff, right? You have a right to a lawyer, not a specific lawyer. Do you understand what I mean by that?
I do get what you mean by that, yeah.
Okay,
But
so
again,
that's sort of how a lot of things work in the medical system as well, right? If I say that you have a right to a medical procedure, that doesn't mean you have a right to force a specific person to give you that medical procedure.
right.
All right, so is there another
Doctor
example?
is not violating a woman's autonomy when he tells her, "I don't want to give you an abortion. Go someplace else."
I'm sorry, can you repeat what you said?
If a doctor tells a woman, "I'm not giving you an abortion," the state cannot force the doctor to get her an abortion.
The state,
Force
the
the
state.
doctor to give her an abortion.
Well, no, the state cannot currently force any specific doctor to perform any
No,
specific
in your morality,
No, we can make it so that a woman has a right to a doctor performing that procedure also, but not any one specific doctor. The same thing we do for lawyers. This isn't like
so
a weird issue. This is just how the system currently works. Now it works fine. There
I'm,
are
I'm, I'm trying to understand your morality here, Pumpkin.
Mhm.
First, morality first, then we can talk about legality. But
Yeah.
if,
So,
in your morality, if let's say a woman, for whatever reason, cannot travel out of America for whatever reason,
mhm.
every single doctor in America is pro-life.
Okay.
Okay, so the
That
fact that she
that
can't
kind
get an
of
abortion is
breaks.
completely acceptable.
No, so that kind of breaks things because, like, you'll never get a situation where that's actually the case. You'll never get a
That's the
situation.
point of a hypothetical.
Yeah, but like the reason that these systems work right now, and the reason why I think it's moral to have these systems set up is because it's under the assumption that you will get doctors who will consensually do procedures. And by the way, like under like parts of the Hippocratic Oath, doctors are supposed to do procedures that they don't necessarily like morally agree with or work with people they don't like for example, right? Like a lot of times doctors put their own feelings aside in order to help their patient. That's part of being a doctor to a big degree. So like generally I like if you ask me to consider something that like changes the moral framework of something to such a degree, I feel like that breaks. I don't think I can necessarily fairly entertain this hypothetical because the entire medical system, as well as our entire legal system, is built off the idea that you will have people who will consensually do this work for you. And
Okay,
we're not
okay.
like we don't have
Let's
to force people to.
okay. Going back to the trans disabled argument,
Mm-hmm.
it might be plausible to say that no, at the very least, the trans disabled person could not find a doctor the, that would offer the procedure for him to cut off his arm.
Yeah.
Should the state force a doctor to now cut off his arm?
Uh, I that's muddy water. I'm not sure if they could do that or not. I mean, it would kind of depend on like what like I think it in this hypothetical it kind of comes down to like if the medical establishment but in that case like if the medical establishment says that like this is best practices then you wouldn't be able to find it wouldn't be the case that you couldn't find a doctor that could do that. So like I feel like maybe in that case it would be the case that you wouldn't it wouldn't be moral for the state to force the doctor to do something, but you have to realize that that's completely disanalogous and to how abortion currently works in the United States. The doctors who perform abortions are not being forced to perform abortions; they are choosing to. So I mean like the place where the moral question comes in is whether or not the state should force people to do certain work like and whether or not the state should force people to do certain work is a different question than do you have a right to a certain medical procedure.
The state is forcing doctors to perform abortions if you say that abortion is illegal. The
No,
state is not forcing doctors to perform abortion if abortion is illegal.
but by this logic, all medical procedures that are illegal are things that the state is forcing doctors to do.
You're really hammering home the fact that abortion is known as a medical procedure,
It
which
is
which
like
is which is the argument in question, right?
well, no, even if we, I mean, like for example, lobotomies are illegal. Lobotomies are still a medical procedure that they're
No,
bad.
it's not.
Yeah, yes, it is. Lobotomies are absolutely a medical procedure. Just because they're a bad medical procedure that harms people doesn't stop them from being a medical procedure. That's what's
If
happening.
I
It's a form
if
of
I
surgery.
stab somebody and remove their heart, is that a medical procedure?
Uh, yeah, if you surgically remove somebody's heart, that's still a
Oh
medical
my
procedure.
god.
What? No, no, but like, no, removing somebody's heart like is a surgery that happens in like that's a surgery we can do as like part of heart transplants. If you do that as like a form of harvesting someone's heart for the black market, I still think I think that's still technically a medical procedure. It's just a fucked up one.
Oh my. Okay.
I mean, I this is just about the definition of what a medical procedure is. I don't think it's actually relevant to the argument.
Okay. Okay. Pumpkin. My. I guess so. I got one more statement for you. Um. In this in your argument, you do. It seems to me that you do actually agree that this is a child, right?
Um, well, I didn't actually argue about that, and the reason is that I don't think we can know when a fetus becomes a person. I don't think a fetus becomes a person at conception. I don't think that they become a person at birth. I think it happens at some point between then. I don't know when that is, and I don't know how you would know. I think it would
But
have
from
something to do
my
with.
understanding, it's not relevant, right?
I don't think it's relevant. No.
Okay. So for the purpose of this debate, let's assume that personhood starts at conception.
Yeah.
If I can prove to you body autonomy is wrong, then then you can argue me in regards of personhood.
I'm sorry. I'm not going. Your. I don't follow what you're saying.
Let's assume personhood starts at conception. Let me steelman my argument a little bit.
Yeah. So I think we can make this argument, assuming, well, I would say erroneously, that personhood starts at conception. I think my argument works the same. So yeah, we
Yes,
can
yes,
do that.
that's
Have
why
this
I'm
debate.
saying let's assume personhood starts at conception.
Hmm. Okay.
Is consent to sex not consent to pregnancy?
No, it's not.
So if I choose to drink and I get drunk, I consent to drinking but not consent to getting drunk?
I Well, the difference there is that people drink to get drunk usually. People don't have sex in order to have pregnancy. I mean, maybe I don't. I feel like it depends on what you mean by consent. I mean, it's sort of like pregnancy is a risk that you would accept might happen when you have sex. Like if I drive my car, I am accepting the risk that I will get into an accident and crash my car. I don't think that necessarily means I'm consenting to crashing my car. It's just a risk I'm accepting.
I agree, but the problem here is that there's a difference between a natural set of events and external events. When you crash your car, that's something goes wrong because when you drive your car, right, what you're consenting to is you're reaching your destination. Like it's like getting on a plane and consenting to the fact that you reached your destination. You don't consent to the fact that the airplane is going to crash just because it's one of the possibilities. However, pregnancy is one of the natural events of having sex.
I don't care.
Uh, Wait, I'm not done. I'm not done. It, your argument that if we people choose to drink to get drunk is ridiculous because if I say that I'm oh no I don't want to get drunk I need to drive and I choose to drink anyway and I get drunk I would still be responsible for my actions. I would
wait,
still be responsible for my drunken state.
Well, I think all of these things are irrelevant, though. Even if somebody purposely went and artificially inseminated themselves, I think they would still have a right to an abortion. I don't think consenting, even if you do literally consent to being pregnant, I don't think that means that you can't revoke your consent at any point during the 9 months when you are pregnant.
So if people can do that, I can pick up a child, snap his neck, and claim body autonomy.
No, because wait, you do realize that being pregnant actually does put a burden on someone's bodily autonomy,
Oh,
whereas
absolutely,
exist.
100%.
Okay,
But
so
you
the difference
cannot
there is
consent
that
to an action and not consent to the responsibilities of those actions.
no, okay,
Otherwise, I can go and adopt a kid, say, you know what, I don't care about taking care of this child anymore, and then I'll kill this kid. It does not make any sense.
no. So I don't think that you, again, this is what I talked about earlier. I think you have a right to not be pregnant, not a right to kill kids or something. I already stated that. The reason that these things are disanalogous is because in one case the person just exists outside of you, and in another case they're actually actively harming your bodily autonomy. So again, I think you have a right to not donate your blood to somebody, and if that causes them to die, then that's your right. You do not have the right to murder somebody. Those are completely separate things. These have nothing to do with
What do
each
you
other.
think happens in an abortion?
I understand that the result of an abortion is that the kid
No, no,
dies.
no, not the result. What is the action of an abortion? Explain to me what a second trimester abortion. What
I don't.
happens in it?
I don't care. Wait,
Okay, I'll explain it to you. I'll
no,
explain
no,
it to
no.
you.
It doesn't matter because
It does. You
no, no,
just
no,
said you don't
because
have a
the
right
end.
to kill people.
Wait. So if you take let's say like we did like a super early C-section for a second trimester abortion, we just left the kid to the side. Most of the time, that kid would die anyway. If they're gonna
Right.
die anyway, what's the difference between killing them in the womb and then getting rid of it? Like it doesn't matter. The end result is the same.
This argument is so crazy, and let me explain to you how it can be applied to born children. If I leave a child in my room for 48 hours, a newborn baby, that baby is going to die. Okay,
No,
what's the difference?
The difference is that in one case, it's putting a strain on your body. It's using your body. It's attached to you. Where in the other case, it's separate from you. In one case, bodily autonomy matters. In the other case, it does not. I think that
I'm
even
saying this example is bad because you chose to have sex in the first place,
that
and
doesn't
even
matter. Oh wait,
ignoring
I'm sorry.
that.
I don't think that consenting to be pregnant in the most direct sense where you do literally consent to be pregnant means that you
Right.
cannot revoke your consent later on. And
You can't if it means you're gonna kill said person, because that child becomes your responsibility. Every single
I don't
example
believe
you
that.
gave me so far can be applied to born children.
No, it can't
We
because there's
give up
no
our body
bodily
autonomy
autonomy
all the
issue.
time for our born children. Every
But
time,
you don't give up bodily autonomy for your born children. You give up your convenience.
how
And
do you feed a newborn baby?
that's not giving up your bodily autonomy. First off,
The
you can
baby's
absolutely
using the a woman's body's
wait. Do
resources.
you
No,
think that breastfeeding is the same thing as being pregnant in terms of the impact it has
it,
on somebody's body?
absolutely not. I don't think that.
Yeah. So
I
obviously,
never
the
said that.
degree to
But
which
your
one.
argument is body autonomy.
Yes. Wait. So okay. So this is like very very stupid. So what you're saying here essentially is that a violation of someone's right is like a categorical thing. Once you step over that line, it's the same thing no matter how far you go. So like an example of this is like the difference between like a violation of freedom of speech in the sense that like you can't cuss in front of like kids as a teacher or something, like to whichever degree you think that's a violation of free speech versus like 1984 shit where they're going back and like instituting tons of totalitarian forms to control speech. Like freedoms and rights have degrees to them. They are not only categories. I think that there's a big like bodily autonomy isn't just an on-off switch, it's a sliding scale. The degree to which something affects someone's bodily autonomy can be more or less in certain situations. And for that reason, I don't think that, first off, I don't even think that breastfeeding necessarily even has anything to do with bodily autonomy. I think it's like just an action that you take. But even then, if we do get to think that I do think are bodily autonomy issues, like, for example, like whether or not you get vaccinated, I think that might have something to do with bodily autonomy. That's way different than being pregnant or like whether or not you want to donate your organs or something. These are massive gulfs in terms of the degrees to which they are like an imposition on somebody's rights.
So I do want to be clear on this because of the extreme effect of pregnancy, which I agree is pretty intense. Uh, because of that, even though you consent to pregnancy, even though the child came into
I
existence
don't think
because
that
of your
matters.
actions, you have the legal right and moral right to murder this child.
Oh no, I'm only arguing for the legal right. I think moral rights are like way iffier on this. I think there are tons of abortions that I would call immoral, but I still think they have the legal right to do it.
Okay, legally. I think that statement is complete nonsense because you can absolutely apply this to born children.
No, you can't.
If I pick up a child and sear him onto my skin, like really badly, and the doctor says you have to wait 9 months before I can remove this child from you, you would never say, oh, okay, you get to snap this kid's neck.
Well, I think you wait. Sorry, if somebody went through a surgery to attach you to another person,
No,
I
no, no,
think you.
not a surgery, not a surgery, not a surgery. I pick up a random child, tear him onto my skin, and I do such a poor job. The doctor says that I only have you need to wait 9 months for your skin to grow properly before I remove this baby from you. Would you say I have the legal right to snap this kid's neck?
Wait, I'm sorry. What is this? So there's a child that's attached to you,
I
and
picked up this child and seared him onto my skin.
what, like you burned him onto you,
Yes.
and now it's gonna take 9 months for you to become unattached.
9 months for my yes, 9 months to before we can become unattached. Yes.
Well, I think the issue there with that example is that at that point, both people's bodily autonomy are being violated. Whereas in the case of abortion, I think only the woman's rights to bodily autonomy is in question.
Wait. Why is the child's autonomy not being violated? Why is the child's autonomy being violated here? Why is that
Because
relevant? It's a baby.
they're also attached to you. It goes both ways. It doesn't go both ways with pregnancy. Pregnancy is one entity, like absorbing nutrients and shit from another person.
Okay, so if the baby that's seared onto me was also absorbing my nutrients, now I have the right to kill it.
Mm, I don't know. Maybe that's pretty fucked. That's a pretty fucked situation.
Well, no, I think I've answered all the questions. You avoided a lot of my hypotheticals.
I haven't avoided any of them. I avoided the. I told you why some of them weren't relevant. So we're talking about
It's,
one of your hypotheticals right now, and I'm directly engaging with it actually.
yeah, and you said, yeah, you can kill a baby that I pick up and sear onto my skin that's absorbing my nutrients. That's completely valid according to you. So I honestly don't know how we can debate this further. We have different understandings. No, you shouldn't be able to kill a child that has no say in the matter, that had no decision on the situation it was put in. You have anything else to add, Pumpkin? I'm listening,
No, I'm
but I
actually
have
trying
nothing else
to.
to add.
I'm actually trying to engage with this hypothetical and take it out. So, sorry, I'm actually just like thinking right now because like I to some degree I think the hypothetical is just really like silly because there's no way medically that this would ever be the case, and so I'm trying to think of like any situation medically where where this would be relevant because
No,
like
that's the point of a hypothetical.
yeah no but like but the thing is that it feels like it's distracting to me because it feels like it feels like such a stupid thing to happen. So like I'm trying to think of like if two people are like attached by like blood transplant or something.
Hmm.
Um, hmm, I don't know. I feel like I feel like it is like pretty messed up. I, to be honest, I do think that it feels to me like no matter what happens, it's pretty bad. I don't know if like it's like again, this is the conversation ender. And you just don't think that you that like it makes like sense, but like to some degree, I feel like I I do still feel like ultimately the situation you've prescribed to me it to be analogous to like what we're talking about, like in a situation where if I like I'm hooked up with somebody and like they have to like keep sucking on my blood and it's like like fucking me up. I have to like it's
No,
an
no,
or like it's a similar like invasion of my bodily autonomy to pregnancy or whatever, right? And they need that to live. Um, I do think that is something that I would just like say like yeah you have a right to not do that. I think that is ultimately similar to the whole organ donor thing. I don't think there's a very big
Pumpkin,
difference between those two things.
Pumpkin. Someone in the chat gave another analogy. Uh,
Sure.
maybe this would make more sense than mine.
Mhm.
Let's say we can transfer pregnancies, right? A woman is pregnant, but she's gonna have a medical complications. So if she
Mhm.
doesn't abort, she or the baby will die.
Mhm.
Okay, but we can transfer pregnancies. So she signs a contract with another woman and transfers her pregnancy to that woman.
Mhm.
But that woman 2 months later in doesn't want to be pregnant anymore, underestimated the complications of pregnancy,
Yeah, she
and
can
she
totally get an
decides to
abortion.
abort.
That's fine.
She can get an abortion,
Yeah.
even though even though the first woman wanted the baby.
Yeah. You
So
make another one. I don't know.
all right, okay,
I
that's
mean,
all
like,
I
dude,
needed to know.
wait,
Thanks.
I'm sorry, but like contracts don't prevent you from like, I don't think the state would enforce that contract. Like, it's the same reason that we don't enforce like indentured servitude contracts. Like, it's such an imposition on somebody's rights. I don't think you should. I don't think you should have the ability to sell away your body in that way to somebody. I don't think that you should be like criminally liable, at least in a situation like that. Like maybe you have to pay like damages or something, but I don't think you should go to jail for that. No.
All right, I have nothing. I have nothing else to say. We don't need to go into anything else because at the fundamental level of, you shouldn't be able to kill somebody that you yourself put
Wait,
in that
can I ask you
position
a question?
is disagreed upon. So
Wait.
I don't know have
No,
anything to
no, I
add.
need to ask you a question. So, like, if you get into a car crash, right, and somebody like gets hurt, uh, and the only way to save them is for you to for them to do like an organ transplant of some kind. Do you think the
No,
state
I
should be
don't
able to?
think that the state should mandate that. No,
Okay, can you explain to me the difference between that and an abortion? Because I don't.
the difference between abortion and a car crash are two very different things. First of all, when you reject to donate your organ, you are again rejecting medical intervention, which is a legal thing to do. But when you demand an abortion, you are demanding a medical intervention, which does not
That's not
follow
a real
under body
distinction.
autonomy laws.
That's not a real
Secondly,
distinction. I don't.
yeah, it is absolutely a real distinction. Otherwise, trans disabled people that don't get their arms cut off can sue the doctor for not having their arms cut
No,
off.
there's a difference between having a
It's a
right.
completely
Wait.
different
I'm sorry. We
statement.
already went over this. There's a difference between having a right to a medical procedure and having the right to a specific doctor giving you a medical procedure. Those are two different things. Not the same.
Second statement.
Yep.
The oh, yeah, no, that's pretty much it. Yeah,
Okay. So
I
you're
understand that you can't find the difference between medical intervention and medical rejection, but it is
no,
not
but
just
you
legally
haven't been
but
able to
morally a
describe it.
difference.
No, you haven't been able to describe the difference to me. Like explain the difference. I don't see the difference. Like come
The
to think of it.
trans disabled person
Mm-hmm.
should be able to get a medical procedure with quotation marks, from the same doctor. He should not need to go to another doctor if it's
No,
his
that's not how
body.
that works, dude. When I argue that abortion should be legal, that you should have a right to a medical procedure, I'm not arguing that you should have the right to force a specific surgeon to give you an abortion. I'm arguing that the state should not prosecute you for getting a specific medical procedure. That's different. Those are not the same thing. These are completely disanalogous. In fact, since these are both medical procedures, I can just say like, yeah, the state should not make it illegal for you to surgically remove your arm, in the same way they should not make it illegal for you to get an abortion. Like those are the same imposition on bodily autonomy. The right for a specific doctor to not want to do certain medical procedures doesn't even come up here. This just has nothing to do with it. The idea that you have, or at least the analogy you're using to try and make this distinction between rejecting medical intervention and demanding medical intervention, just doesn't apply here. It's not real. Like, okay, let's say, for instance, that like instead of having a specific surgeon do it, we had a robot that could do these surgeries for us, either the trans disabled one or the abortion. Would that change the logic? Because under what you're saying, it should.
I don't understand why changing it to a robot has any
Because
change into the argument. If
because
it's a robot, then the robot is property of the government, assuming that it is, right.
yeah.
It's not a personal robot.
Mhm.
Then and if the doctor goes to the robot and says cut off my arm, and the robot says no, I cannot perform this procedure, then
Wait, you realize that there's a difference between a robot that is programmed, or like, so in the case of a doctor saying I don't want to cut off your arm, that's the doctor doing like that's a human person who has specific rights as well. A robot is a robot; they don't have rights.
right.
Robots do what we tell them to.
No,
So
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if he goes to a robot, right, and says I'm a trans disabled person, let me cut off my arm, and the robot says, "No, I don't think you're a trans disabled person. I'm not going to cut off my your arm for you." Is that robot violating that person's body autonomy? According to your reasoning, yes.
What? What? Well, I mean, in that case, I would definitely like. Wait, so I think in the case that you're talking about, because if you're talking about the robot in this case, we're talking about the United States government, right? So in that case, the United States government is denying somebody the ability to control their body for seemingly
Right.
no
That's
reason.
exactly what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So in that case, yeah, if the United States government said essentially makes it illegal to get your arm cut off as a trans disabled person, then yeah, that's a violation of that person's bodily autonomy.
Okay. No. I get it. We don't really need to
Wait, I'm
discuss
sorry.
this
Can I ask you a
further.
question?
We have
Do you think that the government, if the government like banned the ability of people to get body piercings and tattoos, do you think that'd be a violation of people's bodily autonomy? Because I think it would.
a violation of body autonomy. No, but it would be pretty fucking stupid.
Okay, well then what is it? Because I think that specific thing isn't just like a stupid thing to do. I think it's more like legally and morally bad because it's a violation of people's rights. You are restricting people's freedoms for no reason. So what freedoms are we losing if they do that? Or do you not agree that like banning people's ability to get piercings and tattoos is a violation of freedom?
Freedom maybe, but not body autonomy.
So can I ask what freedom it is then? Because I can't think of a freedom that would possibly be besides bodily autonomy. It's literally choosing what to do with your body. What freedom is being violated?
I don't know. I don't have
Oh,
an answer for that.
okay, the answer is the freedom of bodily autonomy. That's what it is.
Okay.
Okay, so I mean, like you can try like maybe at some point if you can think of a better way to put that into words, like a better like way to explain what's going on there. But we could agree that like the government forcing you to not be able to get like to do with your body what you want in some instances can be a violation of bodily autonomy. So if we can backtrack, and I agree that these are different situations, right? The trans disabled person when he cut off their arm versus people getting tattoos and piercings. What changes between those two things for you? And I imagine that there are quite a few answers you can give here, but I want to know like what exactly it is that you think is different.
One's a bit of a smaller thing. That's why.
Okay, so I don't see how that. So the only instance in which I think that matters is like for harm reduction, because I think that like if somebody wants to make a major medical intervention, it makes sense to have a doctor overseeing it to make sure they aren't like fucking up. But outside of that, like I think that people like. Did you just not agree generally with the idea that people have the freedom of bodily autonomy, that people have the right to do with their
We
bodies what
don't
they
have a
want?
complete freedom of body autonomy. No, that's why I support vaccines.
Okay, well, I also support vaccines, but I would still say that we have a freedom of bodily autonomy
Wait. Hang on. Why is that?
because the imposition on your bodily autonomy that we have for vaccines is incredibly minimal. And the imposition on people's freedom by not demanding vaccines is greater. We live in a more free society because we mandate vaccines than we would if we did not mandate them. We would not live in a more free society if we force people to give birth than we would if we did not force them to.
All right, man.
Okay, so I mean, I think the thing to dig into here is the idea that like people don't have a total freedom to bodily. So you like what I don't really understand. Like, I feel like if you say that we don't have a freedom to bodily autonomy, then why can't like the government force us to give blood? Like, why not?
Again, rejecting medical intervention
But you haven't.
versus demanding medical intervention.
But you
I'm not going. You haven't agreed
no
with
no. I,
me,
I
and you
have
haven't
disproven that
proved
point.
me wrong either.
I absolutely have. So the only example that you've given for that distinction is the example of a specific doctor, uh, like when the trans disabled person.
If every doctor said, "No, I'm not going to cut off your arm, you absolute buffoon," then yes, that is still rejecting medical intervention. That's not a demanding medical
Wait.
intervention.
No.
You
So
want to
that's not.
say that the government can force
No.
a medical
No.
intervention?
No.
That
You're
is a
just wrong here.
separate statement.
No. So you're just wrong here. The difference, like this is why I brought up the robot. The difference between those two things is that in one case where the doctors are saying no, what you're asking for is for the state to demand that specific people do something. That's the state implicating someone's rights. The medical intervention part is completely secondary to whether or not the state has allowed people to perform certain tasks. That's why I brought up a robot. If we have a robot to do it, then then the only issue that you brought up with the idea that if every doctor says they don't want to do this, can you still force them to do this? I would say no in that case. That's because of the freedoms of the doctors. If there's no human that we're forcing to do anything, that goes away. So if we have a robot that is that like people can or can't go to ask for certain medical procedures, what what is the difference there? What in what case with a specific instance of a robot doing it do we have the difference between demanding and rejecting medical interventions?
I can't if the rejecting and demanding medical intervention is not I can't if that's not explanation enough for you, I can't prove it to you.
Yeah, well, I would imagine you would engage with the hypothetical because the only hypothetical to explain it is a case where another person and that person's rights come into play. So I need you to explain it to me in a situation where no other person's rights are implicated.
But what do you mean? Like the disabled person, his rights are being violated when he doesn't get an arm transplant or an arm removal.
Yeah, so I would say in the case that like we've checked for somebody and we know that like I would say we do our due diligence for harm reduction to make sure that this person actually does want to lose an arm. I would say there is absolutely no reason for the robot to not give them that procedure.
Right now, I disagree
Why?
because he's fucking stupid. Maybe how about that? No,
So,
because
no,
the
I
government
think
has
that's
a
very
legal right.
revealing. You think that you have the right to tell people what they can or can't do with their bodies. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Okay, so you just don't believe in bodily autonomy. That is the difference in
No,
this
I
debate.
don't. I don't. We violate our body autonomy all the fucking
So,
time, every
so
single day.
why can't
I'm
the
violating it
government
right now.
force you to give blood if you do not believe that people have right to blood? Like again, we need more blood. We
No,
need more blood and blood drives.
same reason.
We have a lot of it. Why can't we just force people to donate blood if people don't have the right to bodily autonomy? Why don't we just do that?
Listen, you just used that example with vaccines. There's a difference between something small and something large,
Yeah, but
right?
that's because I believe in bodily autonomy.
You
I
no, you don't.
But yes, I do. Wait, I literally do. Okay, so the imposition on people's bodily autonomy by a fucking pandemic ravaging the country and killing tons of people is bigger than the imposition of bodily autonomy caused by mandating vaccines.
So again, you don't believe in it. When you just said
No.
that we
Oh
allow
my god.
vaccines, you don't believe body autonomy when it comes to vaccines.
No. I think that the amount of bodily autonomy that we give people by mandating vaccines increases. I think that we like the amount of control people have with their bodies actually increases by that action.
Well, if that's the reason, then when you get an abortion, in a, you are having less body autonomy because then only one person can exist. If you don't get an abortion, two people can exist. That's more body autonomy if that's your reasoning.
No, because you're getting rid of the ability for somebody to control their body in a much greater
No, no, no.
scale.
You said that the reason you support vaccines is because it allows us to have a more body autonomy, right?
Yeah, it increases the overall. Well, I guess.
Overall body autonomy. Tell
Well,
me,
okay. There are two. There
objectively
are
speaking,
two.
is
Wait, wait.
one person having more body autonomy or two people having more body autonomy? Which,
So okay,
if you combine them, which one has
that's
more
only.
body autonomy
Wait.
total?
So I'm sorry, I misspoke. There are two reasons why I'm pro vaccines. A is the increase in
Okay.
overall body autonomy. The second is because I don't think that getting a vaccine is that big of an imposition on somebody's bodily autonomy. So, in another example of this that we could use is something like free speech, right? I think that restricting like free speech in the ways that we like get rid of libel and we like ban harassment and stuff. I do think that is a restriction on people's freedom of speech. But the I think it's A, not a very big restriction on freedom of speech, and B, I think that we ultimately live in a more free society because we restrict people's freedom of speech, in that so people can't like bully and shout down certain people and like stop them from talking about things, right? So I think there are
Wait,
multiple
are you
factors.
supportive of that or against it? I don't understand. Are you supportive of people shutting down conversation or not?
I wait. I am for
Yeah.
I am for the United States government banning very specific types of speech, such as libel, certain types of harassment and stuff like that, which
Yeah, yeah.
I think you could argue is a freedom of speech, because I think that we ultimately are more free because of it, right?
Now, no, death threats, I believe, technically are illegal, and saying that I'll pay somebody to kill somebody, that's also illegal. So,
Mhm,
no, I agree with that. We don't have complete freedom of speech. Yeah.
mhm.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not American, but yes.
Okay. So the uh, uh, the reason that I believe that, even though I do still believe in the freedom of speech, is because we get those benefits from it, and because I don't believe that it's a huge imposition on people's freedoms. However, if like let's say that you could prove that like through some 1984 laws that you could like have a totalitarian shutdown on people's freedom of speech, that would like give us some other really big benefit. I would be against that because I think it goes too far in how much freedom it's taking away from somebody. Would you agree with that? That even if like through some really really extreme restrictions on people's freedoms, we could like make things a lot safer for people. That we should therefore that we still shouldn't do that because it restricts people's freedoms too much.
Yeah, no, I agree. The similar. That's why partially I don't actually believe in body autonomy. I think it's a nonsense statement because we violate our body autonomy all the time, every single day.
No, dude,
We
wait. You didn't get the point of the analogy. So
Please explain again.
the point of the analogy is that I am okay with some light restrictions of freedom of speech, but not major restrictions of freedom of speech, because the light restrictions of freedom of speech can benefit us, but the major ones, even if they do benefit us a lot more, we end up. I think it still goes too far. So I'm okay with some light impositions on people's bodily autonomy, but I'm not okay with major impositions on people's bodily autonomy, even if they do some good things for us. That's the analogy. So I still believe in bodily autonomy. I just think that you can make some carve out some exceptions where you are technically hurting people's bodily autonomy, but the benefit we get to it is too great to show up. Whereas I, just like with freedom of speech, completely flatly deny any major violations of bodily autonomy.
Okay.
Do you understand that, or do you think that's inconsistent in
I
some way?
understand that you're making a number difference essentially. It's pregnancy is too much. That's why we shouldn't make exceptions for it. But vaccines is not too much. That's why we should make exceptions.
Yeah. So
Yeah, no, I understand.
okay.
I,
So
I'm simply saying that we violate our body autonomy all the time. That's why and vaccines is just one of them.
mhm.
Not under this principle. I don't support abortion. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay, but I mean, we still need to circle back to the whole bodily autonomy thing. So, but you said you don't agree that people have a right to bodily autonomy. So, like, how far does that go? Like, why can't we force everyone to be an organ donor if people don't have a freedom of bodily autonomy?
You can technically, but what I mean by this is more like you can have an opt out procedure rather than an opt in.
Okay, you still have it, but okay. So those are two separate topics. First off, I need you to explain to me: do you think that we like? Do you believe in bodily autonomy or not? Because if you don't believe in bodily autonomy, I don't see why we shouldn't force people to be an organ donor. Like if somebody needs an organ transplant, why can't we just say, "Hey, you come? We need your organs for this. You don't need them as much."
Yeah, sure. I believe in body autonomy
Okay,
to some degree.
okay. I guess we need to go to from there. Uh, uh, is the only reason then that you don't think that we should get abortions is because of the distinction you make between demanding procedure versus opting out of procedure? Is that the only thing?
No, in consensual sex, you consented to the pregnancy. I mean, you've made it, like I said, we've already discussed this. You've made it clear that, yeah, you can kill children that you yourself put in a position, provided that they are violating your body autonomy. but it doesn't matter. But I'm saying that shouldn't matter because you're the one who picked up the baby in the first place. It's not like the baby had a choice in the matter.
Well,
But
we
again,
have to
you've
take
already
the things one
made
at
it
a time.
clear. So
So we either need to talk about whether or not like consenting to be pregnant is means that you shouldn't like be able to revoke your consent at any point. We need to talk about like the distinction you make between revoking or demanding medical procedures. So which topic would you like to go over first?
let's go over the first one: demanding versus rejecting medical intervention.
Okay, so I still have an example of this that I anything. Can you give me an actual example where, again, where one person's rights outside of the person we're talking about are not being impacted by this?
You mean like two people?
Yeah. For example, we talk about a specific doctor doing a procedure and whether or not that person getting that, being given, whether or not that person should be forced to do that procedure. The difference there is that that's another person other than the person who is either being demanding or the person who is rejecting a medical procedure whose rights are being directly impacted by this. So I need
So there needs to be another individual.
yeah. So the reason why I don't like those examples is because you were talking about two people's rights, not one person's. So I need an example where one person's rights is all we're talking about, where you can just show me the difference between why you should be not be able to demand medical procedure, but you should be able to reject it.
But so I should make an analogy that doesn't involve the doctor.
You should make an analogy that only involves one person's rights. Yes.
But abortion involves like three people.
But we're only talking about whether or not people have a right to reject or to or to demand medical procedure. That's the only thing we're talking about right
Medical
now.
intervention has to involve two people. I mean, we can use your robot as an example,
Yes,
but
that's one of the reasons why I did
any
that.
medical procedure would at least involve two people, no?
Yes, but I've already explained why this isn't an issue.
We can choose the robot as an example, right?
Okay.
If the trans disabled person goes to a robot doctor says, "No, I'm not cutting off your fingers or your arms or your legs or your foot," and the trans disabled person sues the government for violation of his body autonomy. I think that's fucking stupid.
What? Okay, but I dislike this example because I think the only reason that you think that is because you think the that person's right to cut off like parts of their body is like dumb for some reason, and you just think that that's not a desire that people should respect, and that's the only reason
No,
you're saying that. Because
no,
like,
yeah,
okay,
exactly, yeah, yeah. I
okay,
don't respect that. Yes.
okay, so I I feel like that's a really stupid thing. Like I don't see how that impacts you. I don't see why you should have the right to determine what other people do with their body. Like full stop. I don't think that that's
Then
something
why
you
can
should.
you do something to the child's body?
But
If you
that's not
don't
what we're
have a right
talking
to
about.
do
Wait,
whatever
wait,
you want to another person's body, then why can I kill this child?
because you're not doing it to their body. You're doing it to your body. It's about your bodily
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
autonomy.
whoa. Okay, okay, okay. Hang on.
But wait. Before we get there, there's no reason to have that conversation. If you think that you can control other people's body for literally no fucking reason at all, then there's no reason to jump to that. If you think that you should be able to tell people what they can or can't do with their body in terms of like removing fingers for what seems to be no reason, like I don't see why like that's the fundamental difference. This isn't about whether or not we somebody's bodily autonomy overrides someone else's right to life in some instances. It's about whether or not people have bodily autonomy at all, which you seemingly don't agree with.
I believe we have some body autonomy, yes, but we violate it all the time. Another
Okay,
example would be like I'm wearing clothes right now. If I have complete body autonomy, I should be allowed to not wear clothes.
I mean, I think you could actually fairly make that argument, yes, but also that's not necessarily bodily of like a severe implication of bodily autonomy. It's not like
I am. I
affecting what
have
you
to.
put on your body is different than like whether like what food you eat or like whether or not you have organs and shit. Like you realize that like I I, I feel like that's kind of a matter of degrees. It's just like it's such a big gulf in degrees that's weird to talk about. But like if we can return to the example, like what you're saying when you say that like people shouldn't have the right to like to this trans disabled thing. Like I still don't understand why it is that you think you should be able to tell that person what they can or can't do with their body. Like what gives you that right?
I guess nothing. It's my intuition.
Okay, so are you capable of being moved on this, or is this just something that you're like stand still on? Like that you think you should be able to tell people, like, because here's the thing, I understand the intuition that like someone's making a big change, it feels like that could hurt them, we should maybe intervene, right? And so I think that there is some necessary like harm reduction that needs to go into that. But
I
like,
guess, yeah, sure.
so okay, so well, what I'm trying to get to is, do you think will you budge on the idea that the trans disabled person is having their bodily autonomy violated if like the government makes it illegal for them to get those procedures?
No.
Okay, can are you capable of being moved on that, or should the conversation end here?
I think like I said, we made a couple arguments, and I've tried to hammer home the fact that rejecting medical intervention and demanding medical intervention are two different things. And you've tried to hammer home the fact that no, they're basically the same. But I
Yeah.
honestly don't think we're gonna agree or disagree on
Well,
that.
the
But
thing is, you still haven't given me a good example.
no, I haven't. I haven't.
Okay, well, if at
I
any
don't
point,
want to.
well, no, but if at any point in the future you could give me a good example, I'd be interested because
Yeah, sure. If no one's made this argument before, but I'll have to think about it. Yeah.
yeah, because like it does seem to me like you're, because I can understand why intuitively it feels like there's a difference there, but I just don't, like, philosophically I don't see like the difference between like a, like if we have like the state robot doctor, I don't see the difference between them, like you going up to and saying, hey, can I please do this, versus it coming up to you and saying, hey, I want to do this to you. Like I feel like the right to do those things is essentially the same. Like it's about whether or not you control your body.
Okay. You made one more statement. You said that the abortion affects is acting on her body.
It undeniably is, yeah.
So the problem with this statement is this implies that the baby is part of the mother's body.
Well, it to some degree is and isn't. It is definitely exerting force on their body that is violating their
Yeah,
body
yeah. No
autonomy.
one's saying I exert force on my mom when I say, "Mom, can I have some money tonight?"
No,
Yeah, I
that is
exert force all
categorically
the
different.
time.
Wait, no, okay. Do you understand the difference between a pregnancy versus you saying something to somebody? Like I'm
I'm
sorry.
making a joke, man.
Yeah,
But
okay.
okay.
Yeah, no, but like
There's a
I
different.
think
No, I'm saying that we
I
exert
understand.
force all the time, even as children, like breastfeeding, for example, we're exerting force, right?
No, there's between exerting force in like a colloquial sense and exerting force over someone's bodily autonomy. Like,
Breast milk.
okay, that's also another thing of degrees. But like, I again, I don't think you have the right to go up to somebody and demand they give you breast milk. That's also a bodily autonomy issue. Like, you can't.
Yeah, I agree. Also, it's sexual harassment.
Okay, well, yes, that too. But like, uh, oh God, where were we?
Um, I'm trying to understand when you said that it affects on her body. I'm trying to understand, is the fetus part of her body?
I don't think it is. I think.
So it doesn't act. The abortion doesn't act on her body. It
Well,
partially
no,
acts on
it
her,
absolutely
but
does.
the
Removing,
it does, but it also affects another individual. Why do you get to violate that person's body autonomy?
because they're the one imposing on somebody else's.
Okay, okay.
Because
I presume in uh
okay, so the
I
difference here,
presume you've heard of the violinist argument, right?
yes,
Okay. So in the violinist argument,
you're
you are
cutting
allowed
out.
to unplug.
Hmm.
In that instance, uh, what you aren't allowed to do is you're not allowed to poison his bloodstream. You're not allowed to uh,
crush its skull, vacuum up its organs. You're not allowed to jam a needle into this man's skull and give him a heart attack. Or do you disagree with this?
Uh, I would say those are also violations of his bodily autonomy to some extent. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, I
Okay.
agree.
So the issue here is that like in the case of abortions, we don't currently have like the medical like medically like there isn't a way to just simply like unplug cleanly.
Okay.
That's not a thing we can really like. When you have an abortion, like I defend people's right to not be pregnant essentially, and so I care about their ability to remove the fetus. However they do that, however they have to do that in order to do it is well. Like if you had,
Okay, so if I push the vileness into another room filled with acid, that's completely acceptable?
I mean, only I think in this case only if it's literally the only way to quote unquote
Okay.
unplug. I think that those parts of the procedures are matters of necessity, not something that people have a right intrinsically to do. I don't think you have a right intrinsically to like. I mean, again, this is something that I actually do think changes about like the because I do have like some questions about the personhood of the fetus, right? And I think that they have more or less bodily autonomy at different times. For this conversation, I've agreed to treat them like a full person at the whole time, which I don't
Right,
necessarily
because it's
agree.
irrelevant, right?
Yeah, it's irrelevant for the most part. I think there are some edge cases where it becomes relevant. For instance, like I genuinely do not care what you do to like a 2 week fetus. Like you can be as
Okay.
disrespectful to it as you want.
Not a
I don't think
fetus at
that's
2 weeks.
or yeah, sorry, I misspoke. I wasn't thinking correctly. But like whatever you do to that clump of cells at 2 weeks or whatever, like I don't give a shit. But like I in the instance of a full person, I think they have bodily autonomy at some level, and I think that along with personhood, bodily autonomy emerges for the zygote fetus, whatever, along the
Mm-hmm.
pregnancy. I just don't know when it happens. Do you understand what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. So, what next?
I mean, we might be at the point to be asking for questions. Like again,
Right.
if you just think if you are standing by the idea that you have the right to control what other people do with their bodies, if you think that like that goes as
Like
far,
vaccines.
okay. I don't think that people. I don't think that you have the right to give people vaccines for no fucking reason. I think that is a violation of people's bodily autonomy. Do you agree with that? That like outside of like if there weren't outstanding circumstances for like how vaccines a help the individual you give them,
If
but
it's not an
also
outstanding circumstance, then I don't actually care.
okay.
If
So
the government forces vaccines or not, I don't particularly care. No.
okay, so that's just level of imposition on people's body that you just think is okay.
Okay.
Uh
Okay.
I mean I can understand that. How far does that go? Like how far do you think the government can force us to do things with our bodies? And like it
Outstanding circumstances or non-outstanding circumstances?
uh let's start with non-outstanding.
Well, it depends on how much it affects us, right? Vaccines is not that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, that's about it, right? What I would need, I can't really think of an example.
What about blood drives? Do you think that we should force people to give blood and blood drives?
Hmm.
Because
I
there,
honestly don't care that much, to be perfectly honest.
because I
But I
actually,
would say, in regards of a principle, you know,
so you do, so that actually is another thing that would fall to this. You think that people should be forced to give blood and blood drives? Because
no,
again,
I
there
don't
are
care. Is my answer. I don't particularly care. Giving away blood, if by the way, if you are capable of doing so, right? Not people who are like very anemic and people like that.
yeah, obviously, right. But
Right,
like,
right.
I just want to say,
People like me, 20, 10, 15 kilos overweight, people like me,
yeah,
give
but
some unhealthy blood.
no, but what I'm saying is like, what I wanted to say is that there actually are outstanding circumstances when it comes to giving blood. Like there are lots of times where we have like a shortage of blood, and we actually need more of it to be able to give to people in order to save their lives. So,
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
okay, so I think that's worth noting. I think that's too far, personally, um, but you know that's me. So I guess I do like Have you also said that you think that we should force people to donate their organs in order to save somebody else's life?
It would need to be a very extraneous situation, but yes.
But well, I mean, the thing is, we have lots of people who are like waiting for organ transplants who really need them. Like we have extraneous circumstances right now.
No, no, these are, no, I mean, like something that would affect society and society's future. It has to be like a very cataclysmic event, essentially.
Well, abortion is not a cataclysmic event.
I agree.
So I mean, like, if you are okay with medical, like the state coming in and violating people's right to control their body, in the case of, I don't see why you would say that we can't force people
Case of
to.
what?
You said that you are okay with the state controlling people's body.
You're cutting out, man.
Why am I cutting out? I'm like right next
I
to my
don't know.
mic. So, in the case of abortion, you're okay with the state coming in and using force to force people to remain pregnant. I don't see why you wouldn't also be okay with the state forcing people to donate their organs, considering that that would save lots of people's lives.
Uh, we will fall into another trap, man.
What trap?
This will go back into the rejecting and demanding medical intervention
Okay,
thing on top
but
of the consent to sex
well, the
consent
thing
to pregnancy
is
argument.
I'm sorry, but I'm just gonna say that I think you're just wrong then, because you
That's
haven't been
fine.
able
That's
to
cool.
demonstrate. You haven't been able to demonstrate the idea of the difference between rejecting and demanding medical intervention.
Okay,
That is a thing that you've stated, but you have not been able to explain why it's morally relevant or how it affects people's rights.
I
So,
agree. I agree.
so at
But
this
I
point,
don't want to go down into this rabbit hole again.
okay. So,
We
but I
should
mean,
take questions.
the thing is that I just want to say I think then if you're at this point in the conversation, then I've won. If you can't
Okay.
show that, like
Okay.
uh,
Okay.
like so do you want to continue or do you just want to like end it here?
I mean, you very confidently just said you won, and you also said
I
yes, we can kill children that we pick up and steer ourselves onto our skin. So I really don't know why you have that confidence, but all right.
well I mean I told you why, because okay, so when I said I've won, I mean I've won if we don't like if you can't show me the thing, because you said the
Okay,
only.
I agree with you. I agree with you. You won. Now let's take questions.
Okay, let's. Yeah, I was about to say
All
we
right,
only have
fine. I
two.
mean I
Uh,
was being more specific, but whatever.
we only have two questions at the moment, so if anybody else has a question, send it on through the bot, and I will get to it. So question number one is from, I don't know how if there is a proper pronunciation, but MXXD. Shellshock, why did you invent so many hypothetical scenarios completely unrelated to the topic of abortion? Deal with the
I
issue.
explained why they're related, first of all. Secondly, the reason I had to keep changing hypotheticals is because he kept giving me half answers or not properly answering them,
Well, I
or
wasn't
just
giving
not
you half.
understanding the connection in the first place.
No. I wasn't. I never did that in this conversation. I explained why they weren't relevant or something. A lot of the hypotheticals that you gave, I actually do think were irrelevant. But
Okay.
that's what we tried to get into in the conversation.
There is a second part to that. Do you think forcing a woman to carry a pregnancy result of carry a pregnancy resulting from a rape to term is something good?
Something good.
Do you think forcing a
Is
woman
that the question? Is it good?
do you think something do you think forcing a woman to carry a pregnancy as a result of a rape to term is something good?
No.
Okay, but would you do that in your world?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Second question is from Tuss. Question for Shellshock. Legality question. There is a lot of data that seems to say that making abortions illegal doesn't lead to less abortions. However, it leads to more women dying. Is this something that you would be ready to accept? Accept just one more death in order to outlaw it? Or, sorry, just more death in order to outlaw it?
Yes, because we don't remove human rights from a group of people if it means the death of other people. For example, we don't remove human rights from black people, so old white people that can't afford medical care or nurses or other types of assistance, and just because they might die and they will die because they can't afford slaves anymore, does not mean that we can continue treating black people as slaves. So you can't remove human
Holy
rights
shit, dude! Can
from a
you
group of
walk?
human
Wait, dude,
beings
dude,
to
dude. Can
justify
I have to
other
ask you?
human rights. I'm not done. Secondly, state of Poland has the lowest maternal mortality rate of any country in the world. I believe it's second, it's first place, tied first with two maternal mortality rates. Not on top of the fact that abortion is not only illegal, but it's actually gone down as well, from 300,000 to 3,000.
Okay,
And
so
abortion is allowed in cases of rape, but abortions are allowed in cases of rape.
okay, so if I can jump in really quickly, I don't think that pointing to random countries is like an actual way to understand the effects of these type of policies. You need to like because like for example, there could be hundreds of things in Poland that might be affecting the rate at which people get abortion or the effect of or like maternity death and all that kind of stuff. For example, just like a better healthcare system overall, a better economy overall, a better sex education, etc. So I don't think that statistic means anything.
Okay.
Uh,
Next question.
Yeah, I think there's like one more that somebody put in.
Hello.
Let's learn to turn your mic back on. That's a good thing to do. Okay, we do have a couple more questions actually. Next one is from Wash for Pumpkin. If we created an artificial womb to accept a fetus so that women could move the fetus and it would be carried to term without her, do you still think abortion should be legal?
I said it in this debate. I think you have the right to not be pregnant, not the right to like kill the fetus slash zygote or whatever's inside you. It depends entirely on how that technology actually exists and like how it works. But I support the right of people to not be pregnant. However, is the best way to do that. And so if that technology comes out eventually, we can save these children without relying on a woman being pregnant. Then that would change. So I hope that answered your question.
Okay. Any follow up from you, Shellshock? I like to give both people a chance to answer, or at least have a comment if they
No,
want.
no, it's
No.
fine.
Mhm.
Okay. And right as of now, oh, we do have a new question just came in. Fantastic. So the next one is from Pakakone. This is not for anybody specific. Do you support 36 plus abortion?
I
If
feel
that
like it's pretty specific.
if if that's a no, then what's the difference between fourth week and the best? I am not, and I can't
Let me ask this: do you support 36 week plus abortions?
week
If it's a
plus.
no,
Okay,
what's the difference between fourth week when the heartbeat starts and a 36 plus week fetus?
okay, thank you.
I was gonna say I'm pretty sure this is a trick question. I think the idea is to make fun of me because a 36 because the idea is I would say yes, and ha 36-week plus abortion is a post birth. I think that's the joke here. Uh, I don't. I
36 weeks is not post birth.
wait. It's 36 weeks. Wait, it's 4 weeks in a month. It's 9 months.
9 months is 40 weeks.
Is it exactly 40? Wait, 9 times 4 is 30.
There's
Not,
not
not,
28 days per month.
I guess that's correct. I just did the math. Uh, simpler. Whatever. I again, I support the right of people to not be pregnant for whatever reason, and I talked about it earlier. There are some medical complications with like very late term abortions, and like whether or not those should be legal, the sort of quote unquote chilling effect it might have. That's more complicated. At 36 weeks, I would prefer that you not get pregnant from some means other than an abortion. The practicality of that depends. Like I'd want to do more research exactly for whether or not I said. I don't think it's like the best thing to do at that point. I think a C-section is generally favorable.
Okay. And so far as of now, this is our final question from Jumby. Why do you not support late stage abortion and post birth abortion? I don't
Okay.
know how something
As I
post-birth
just
should be considered
so I've
legal.
already gone over the late term abortion thing in the instance that I think it's like very complicated. I generally don't support it because I do think that there are just better ways for women to not be pregnant at that point. And again, my argument is only from bodily autonomy. And since at the point where you have already given birth, they are no longer putting it in a position on your bodily autonomy. Obviously, you can't just abort them. That's irrelevant.
Okay, thank you. That is all the questions I have in the bot, and I've been keeping an eye on chat and haven't seen anybody else ask any.
The one question just came up.
Oh, did we just get one? When does a fetus gain bodily autonomy?
Okay,
Specifically,
so
Tim.
I talked about this in the debate already. I don't know. I think you gain bodily autonomy at around the same time you gain personhood, which I would say is about when you gain consciousness. I don't know when we gain consciousness. I don't know if we can know. So I don't think it's possible to know when something gains bodily autonomy, which is why, in the purpose of this debate, as I did with Shellshock, we agreed to try and go as if at conception they have bodily autonomy, which I think is ridiculous. But for the purpose of this debate, it makes the most sense to act as if that's the case.
Okay, we got a buzzer beater here from Jummy again. Then how can we pass policy about abortion if we just don't know?
Okay, I'm going to have to ask you if you pay attention during the debate at all, because we operated on the assumption that they had personhood and therefore bodily autonomy at conception, and I still made that argument. So if you don't know what my position is regarding that at this point, then you just weren't paying attention.
Alrighty, thanks for that. And that, any last buzzer beaters? Anything just sneak in at the last moment? Did you guys want to have any closing statements? 30 seconds, a minute, each of you, just to wrap things up.
I'd be fine with that. I don't know if Shellshock wants any.
I have nothing more to add.
Alrighty.
I guess I'll just say a quick pithy thing then. Uh, yeah, I think that what Shellshock has presented here is really dangerous. Specifically because, again, I don't think that he actually has I don't think the distinction he tried to offer for why we should, of the difference between demanding versus rejecting medical intervention makes sense. And so I do think that his position would lead you down the road of saying that we need to uh force people to donate organs. Like it would go very far. I think you get to the point where we would lose a lot of our rights to bodily autonomy in general if we actually followed his logic to its logical end. And I'd love to talk to him more about this and about that specific distinction in the future if you can present a better argument for it. But that is where I think the debate has ended. And if Shellshock wants to respond to that, he can, I guess.
Yeah, it's up to you, Shellshock. However, we do have one post closing question. It's a follow up from Wash to their artificial womb question. Are you outright saying abortion should be illegal in a case where there are other viable options like C-section or artificial womb?
Okay. So the issue with that is that we run into the a lot of the sticky realities of outlawing abortion. For example, there are cases where whatever medical procedure you're suggesting instead, such as a C-section or artificial womb, may not be available. There may be some medical complications that may it so that abortion is a better option. And if you ban abortion in those cases, you get to some weird territory where you may need in order to save the life of a mother, you may actually need to do an abortion, but you don't know if you can prove that. The doctor may not want to do it. It can put the life of the mother at risk. These are very, very difficult corner cases, and the exact way that we should make laws about it are more specific. And I think that we should agree on some of the basic stuff, and then we could talk about how far we want to give doctors. I think it makes more sense to give doctors the ability to decide what makes the most sense in that case. I think that we should have a practice of trending away from it, but allowing it if it's necessary, and making it illegal will make it so that people who need abortions may not get them, but it may be the case such that we like people can get C-sections or artificial wombs or whatever you suggested instead, when they can and when it makes sense. But if you ban it, then people like will get hurt.
Alrighty, sounds good. Any comments on that one, Shellshock?
No.
Alrighty, I guess with that we will call it a day. Thanks everybody for coming by, and thanks to you two for being.
Wait, who done it?
Yes.
Can't I just start another debate right now?
No.
I mean, I don't have the time.
Okay.
But you could schedule another debate. Yeah, if you wanted to hop into the challenge boards, post a question, and set one up. Pumpkin can do that, or just schedule it on your own and let us know, and we'll get it up on the event board.
All right. Thanks.
No problem, no problem. And thanks to both of you for a great debate. It has been fun.
Do I go to the after show stage now?
If you
You
want,
can.
yep, yeah, we can. That's usually what happens. We'll usually head on over to the Hangouts, the Hangout channel, voice chat, and just chat. Usually continue the debate, and yep, that's entirely up to you.
Okay.
Thanks for coming by.